Hello, welcome to the Neurospiritual Awakening podcast. I am Dr. Val, your host, aka your resident neuroscientist, and my mission is to bring the neuroscience out of the lab and to the people. And this podcast is one way in which I do that. Of course, I do that in many different ways. I work with people one-on-one, I consult companies, I advise startups, I offer online courses on things like neuroplasticity. So if you're interested, you should definitely hit me up via my website. But today is not a solo episode, okay? It's not a solo episode at all because I have a very, very special guest on the show. We haven't had a person with that unique kind of expertise here before. So I'm really thrilled to introduce Sarah Seagar. Please welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm like, oh, what is my special expertise?
So many. I mean, so many. This is the Neurospiritual Awakening podcast, and I interview people on really the flavor of their awakening. So I know a few things about you, like you used to be a midwife who worked within the medical field. I worked within the medical field. I no longer do that. So whatever you went through, around that. And then you've got all these other special gifts. So why don't
I
you
do. I do.
let us
I'm very blessed, I know. But I think the wonderful thing about your awakening journey, wherever you are, is that it's very personal and individuated. So, um, I have been. I guess I always struggle when you think about when did your awakening journey start, and I guess it's really from the time you're born, right? There's all these things that build into your experience of life, and that informs where you get to. So nothing's wasted, and everything is useful. So I think for me, probably in earnest, I started to get a lot more spiritual when I was pregnant with my first child. And I was pregnant at what, 1999. So it was a while ago. And in that time, the one thing about pregnancy is that you have these incredible dreams, and dream language was always a really big thing for just in conversation with my mum. We generally wake up in the morning, start sharing our dreams, and yeah. So I think when I was pregnant, I started to get some really interesting dreams that felt different to normal dreams, and it was really having Morgan that informed how I wanted to go forward. So that's how I decided to become a midwife.
Oh,
And, like I think intuitively we're led along the path that's already, there's a blueprint for us. And I was thinking about this before I came on was, you don't have to know what the outcome's going to be with anything. You just have to do the things that you're inspired by. And everywhere that you land, there's going to be a reason for that. So although I think my spiritual awakening really began in earnest when I was having Morgan, it was probably again another, I don't know, 14 years before I started to really make a decision that I wanted to live in a more spiritual way. And I was still a midwife. I was still having those like snatched conversations with people about spiritual matters, but kind of quietly away from, you know, ears that might think I was crazy. And in 2016, I'd already trained in massage, but I trained again in Bowen therapy,
okay.
and that was another step towards where I needed to be. And I think for me, much of my journey is about recognizing how important it is to be in this body. And I think that's why all of these very big spiritual steps that came along had to do with physical changes as well. So, yeah,
Wow.
so I guess that's where I started, and all the way along, there's been little blessings and, surprises.
Yes, yes. One of the trends that I'm starting to see, although people's awakenings are vastly different, but there is like it's an ongoing process. That's the connecting factor, if you will. It's an ongoing process, and we go through it, throughout lifetimes, like this lifetime, like that. And it is like it comes in waves. So that's right. Whatever awakening you had in 1999 during your pregnancy, that was one wave of it, and then later there came another. That's what I'm getting from what you're saying, which is in line with what most people say about their awakening process. And if you're listening to this and this resonates, that's awesome. And if it doesn't resonate, well, maybe maybe you should get more present to what's happening in your life. Or just like be attuned to the fact that the awakening is happening. It's happening to Mother Earth, as Rachel Vaughan said a few episodes ago. And as a result of the Earth going through that process, we are going through it as well. So it's like we can't escape it. That's why it's one of the reasons I'm running this podcast, is that people who are starting to go through that process or be present to the fact that they're going through the process actually have something to relate to, because hey, I'm a very 3D trained based neuroscientist person, and yet here we are talking about spirituality and the realm of woo, as some people like to call it. But hey, it's all there. I've seen it, so I can't unsee it, and I'm just here to support others as they're maybe easing or kind of falling into the process.
Yeah, I love that you come at it from the background that you do, Val, too, because when I think about what happens when you have a baby or anything that when you're talking about a physical change in the body, of course there is a neurological change as well. And and that's not well understood. I mean, with pregnancy, the first thing that happens is everyone says, well, you forget things and you drop things and all these. That's true. I used to reason to myself that the reason I'd forget so much when I was pregnant is my body was so busy doing such an important job that it had to just dismiss stuff that really wasn't very important. But yeah, I think there's a lot to learn, and I think that's the beauty of you coming in and marrying your intuition with your intellectual knowledge, is that you are probably going to be on the cutting edge of being able to discern what it is that's actually, what is actually happening, because I can see it from one side, but I really don't know about the neuroscience. So I think that's fascinating. I know about
Mm.
hormones.
Yes. Well, part of neuroscience is neurohormones and hormones, and it's just a whole different game. But as you say, we all have, or at least the people that I've interviewed thus far, including yourself, we all have these special um, areas of expertise from which we can, through the lens of that area, we can actually observe what's going on and yeah, just as you say, marry the two, make it available to the world, and have people choose for themselves based on, informed, I guess, data.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the really tricky thing about the awakening, especially for me in the last 5 years, has been having to discard a whole lot of belief. And I think, and so one of the things I've said in this time is that the most important thing is to be flexible in your thinking. So, flexibility in your thinking then, of course, requires neuroplasticity. And I think that's probably one of the biggest shifts that happens for people who are really, who are really getting on their path, is that they start having to question everything. And it's very hard, and it's a big process of releasing and letting go, because it leaves you very untethered in the world. You don't have a roadmap. You don't know where you're headed. You don't know how to get there, because all of the tools that you've been taught about how you do stuff is suddenly kind of null and void. So yeah, it's a very big change in the way that we address the world around us. But probably most important is that we're going inward. So perhaps we don't need anything except ourselves when we go inward.
Hmm. It's incredible. What you're saying is partly what, I have gone through and am going through and will be going through. It's literally just trusting in the that I don't know, and whatever I know will be questioned probably, tomorrow or the day after that. And then it's like those new neural pathways really do have to form. Otherwise, you're just reliving the same loop over and over, the same neural pathway over and over and over again. And at some point it just becomes boring, or you get a kick up the ass to form a new pathway,
Yes.
basically. Yeah. Wow. So it's so great. So with midwifery, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, I'm kind of from all over the place. I'm from Russia, Canada, and here we
You
are.
can say
You're
it
from New
however you
Zealand.
like.
That's great. You're from New Zealand, Aotearoa, if you like. But I've never actually had anyone from where you're from at the moment. So that's another special thing about you as a guest here. But with midwifery. Where did that lead? So you got this like fascination with it through your first bodily experience of being pregnant, then you devoted yourself to that, which is incredible because I've had two babies myself, and it is pretty incredible. Like it's pretty incredible as a process. Yeah. So what happened after?
Well, so it was when I was pregnant with my son that I met a student midwife, and I knew about midwifery as being a program that was opening for people who hadn't done nursing. And I'd been told by a clairvoyant when I was 20 that I was going to be working with sick people, and I said, no, I'm not. And we had this, like back and forth, and she's like, yes, you are. No, I'm not. And we were both right because I wasn't really intentionally going in to work with sick people. I was going in to work with healthy people who were going through a really big process. But of course, over time, of course, I was dealing with sick people too, or people who
Wow.
had illnesses afflicting them. So I think it was when I met this student midwife and I thought, oh, you know what? I could do this. And I'd really struggled to find any inspiration. I kind of had thought I might do some psychology. But that came out of a place of some trauma from when I was a child, and I just thought I could do psychology better.
Mhm.
And then getting pregnant with Morgan and having her, like when I was pregnant, my mum was like, just wait until you have this baby, like going through labor, you might change your mind. And if anything, it just concreted in the fact that I was designed to do this, and I was really proud of myself for having a baby, let alone, um, you know, looking at other people's experience and saying I want to be assisting with that. So yeah, so I got to go in and do the course through a direct entry program, which meant that I didn't have to do any nursing. I just had to do basically the first year of entry. Direct entry midwifery was similar to doing the first year of nursing, but of course we became very specific about what we were learning rather than the more general stuff. And and actually, my first experience of a birth where I got to have my hands on and catch that baby was actually a pretty dreadful experience. And so I had this magical idea about things because I'd had this beautiful experience for myself. And the first birth that I was at was a woman who she'd had a traumatic brain injury as a child. She was with a guy who was in a gang. She
Wow.
had a 3-year-old. Her situation was pretty desperate and awful. She was drinking, taking drugs, smoking during the pregnancy. She wanted to smoke in the labor, but we had to dissuade her because of the oxygen in the room. It was a beautiful little birthing unit, so it wasn't a hospital.
Mhm.
But when her waters broke, all of the stuff, all the toxins that she'd been collecting in her system for the entire pregnancy was in that amniotic fluid.
Wow.
And this baby was amazingly healthy despite all of this. But I came
Mhm.
home and I said to my brother, I just cannot get the smell out of my system. Like I've washed my hands, I can't get the smell. And it was such a confronting kind of experience because it wasn't all the beautiful, lovely stuff that I had
Yeah.
hoped for.
Talk about a visceral experience, isn't it? There's I mean, yeah, my first birth was like that. I was like, it's gonna be a hypnobirth, it's gonna be amazing. It was, it was a cesarean where the anesthetic didn't work. That was my
Oh
first birth.
God.
It was like really not what I had imagined, you know? And then the second one was vastly different, of course, but I was really, I generated the second one to be vastly different. But but yeah, it's like that. And then it's, as you say, coming back to the body and the importance of the bodily experience, no matter, whether you can access other realms, like float in other dimensions and da da da, or how psychic you are, this experience is in this body.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you got to at least acknowledge it, as much as I think, tried to, suppress it or deny it or like dissociate. The reality is, here I am in this thing,
Yeah.
this bodysuit, body vessel. Yeah. Yeah. And the visceral, the smells and all that. I mean, for some people are guided by their sense of smell. I've been getting into human design, and for some people, their sense of smell is like the thing they go to assess whether the validity of something. So
Yeah.
if you're one of them, then yeah, if smelling that would have been a shocker.
Yeah. Well, it was a
Yeah.
bit of yeah. I have to
Yeah.
say, as much as that was all very brought me down to earth in quite a lot of ways. The two midwives, there was a student midwife and a midwife there who kind of guided me through that process. And I think, sometimes midwives are quite magical people, aren't they? Because they take on this very big role of ushering in new souls, and so the ones that know that can really do incredible things. The ones that don't can do some damage, but there's a reason for everything, so I'm open to
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it was a very interesting start.
Yeah, and my other observation, right? Like this is what I do in my podcast. I get all these, like, I get really excited. I talk to people. I talk, like it becomes a conversation, right? Rather than me just listening to you talk for an hour or whatever. I just get so curious. So, um, but bear with me. So when you said, despite all of the toxins and all that, the baby was a healthy baby, and that's another thing that, like, we as human beings are so resilient.
Mm.
Talk about all the shit food that we eat, all the stuff, like, the vaccines that we're jabbed with from day one. Like, you don't have a choice. If your parent decides to jab you, well, you're jabbed, right?
Mm.
And despite all of that, like, we survive. Or even, being a baby born to a person with addictions and substance abuse, all that. Like, it is, it doesn't seem to amaze me. Yes, I'm a neuroscientist. I know how the world works, or the world of neuroscience works, or at least, the bodily functions. I teach physiology and anatomy to first year midwifery and nursing students currently, so I'm like a little bit equipped with knowing how that works. But it doesn't cease to amaze me that despite all the fuckery like
Yeah.
we get put through, we still survive. Like, it's incredible.
It is incredible. And that's a conversation I've had with Rachel before about, like look at how they can't win, I mean, people get so tied up into the negative and and all of that stuff that's being done to us and trying to put us in this victimhood role, but actually they are not winning. They couldn't even kill us all off with the poison last time. So we've got to start acknowledging just how incredible our bodies are, how incredible our resilience is, because none of the terrible things that have been done have really worked. We still have access to our connection to source. We still have, incredible health if we choose it. And sometimes we have to have an experience of not incredible health because that's informing something about where we're going. But yeah, like we are
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
We're little magic beings.
Really, really are. We really, really are. Okay, I just want to go on so many different tangents, but this is why I keep my episodes 30 to 45 minutes long, so it doesn't go for 3 hours because it easily could. But let me let me ask you this next thing. So after, how did you get out? Like, are you still a midwife, or did that
No.
end? And like,
Yeah,
what
no,
happened?
I chucked that in. In 2020, I decided not to renew my practicing certificate, and I
Mhm.
had been a midwife for about 16 years.
Wow.
And I learned Bowen therapy when I was, 2016. So I'd started already having my own clinic. And what I found was when I was going to work in the birthing unit, I was doing an awful lot of Bowen therapy and I was working with people in a different way. So I was finding that babies that wouldn't feed or had traumas from the birth, quite often it was like their soul hadn't quite come into the body or wasn't able to be safe in the body.
Yeah.
And I found that with the mothers too, like a lot of women coming in with reduced fetal movements, it wasn't that the baby wasn't moving, it was that they weren't in their body enough to feel it.
Mm.
So I guess that what I did was I stepped out of the midwifery of bringing, helping women with their babies coming into the world, and I started helping people come back into their bodies. And I think that's really, for me, I can't see my way back into midwifery because I feel like my role now is to work with helping people to be here in whatever form they are here. So I have clients all the time who come in who are somewhere here. All of their energy body and their intellectual capacity is somewhere here, and they're like tethered to the body, but they're not in the body. And it's
Yeah.
very interesting to watch people's bodies speak as opposed to what their words are speaking. So, so I guess midwifery led into Bowen therapy. Bowen therapy's led me into this space now where I do body work, but I also very much work with the spirit, I think, of the person, and I just try and bring alignment in every aspect. So that's through light language now. Because I'm working in that way, I see a lot, I get a lot of information. So now I really work in a slightly different way, but I'd still say it has an aspect of midwifery to it because I'm still walking alongside somebody and helping them with their journey and birthing
Hmm.
them into their new experience of their body.
It is. Birth is a vast, vast process. I mean, it could be applied to so many things. We're constantly dying, rebirthing ourselves, aren't we?
Mm.
Yet we're a project. Like I just had a filmmaker on the show in the last episode, and I literally asked him, how did you birth this film idea? And it was like that. And he's a man, so yeah. Not to disregard the complexity of the female body and the actual birth of a child. Of course, that's just that's a unique experience that we have the privilege of having.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's Bowen therapy? Like, walk me through it. I'm like not at all knowledgeable in
So
that. So just what is it?
Bowen therapy is very similar to shiatsu. So it's
Okay.
not exactly the same. There was a man called Tom Bowen who was an Australian man and grew up in Victoria, and so there's a lot of differing stories about Tom Bowen, but basically he was involved with sports clubs. He became a bit of a rubber at the club, so that's like a massage therapist. He
Okay.
got mentored by a couple of men who had been to a shiatsu conference in the 1920s.
Wow.
And so I believe that a lot of Bowen therapy is based on the principles of shiatsu
Mm.
and acupressure.
Mm.
So it's a very gentle form of body work. It has a much bigger impact than, to me, it has a bigger impact than massage because you can do something once and you can have a real shift in the body. With massage, I feel like you really kind of exhaust the body's capacity to heal sometimes because you're putting too much information in.
Mm.
Where bone therapy is a little sparser, but it relies on the body knowing exactly how to come into alignment. So
Wow.
yeah,
I just, yeah, I can't help but think of the Hands of Light, the book with, that NASA neuroscientist, whatever her name. Yeah, that book. Like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, I need to say this. So it's funny that you just have it right there. See, I must be psychic. I'm not just an 11 key life path.
Absolutely.
I stayed true to my numbers. I drop a bit of numerology throughout my podcast just because I'm obsessed, as you know. As you've done the course with
Yeah,
Georgie and
we're
I,
all
girls.
obsessed.
We're all obsessed.
I love
Yeah.
going, sitting around a table with numerologists. It's like you can't get a word in edgewise.
I know. It's amazing. But yes, yes. And of course you work with energies, giving you a life path. It's just incredible. And okay, so let's talk about the next bit now. So light language. How did that come through? What happened? I know like just more. Tell me more.
So I met a friend in 2018 who had decided she would teach me Reiki, and I'd been offered Reiki tutoring by lots of people over years, and I thought, no, I don't want to do it with that person. But I met this person, Mel, and said, yes, I do want to learn from you. So I went to see her. We ended up not doing Reiki for about a year because as soon as I met her, she was kind of on this journey and she got activated into light language within a couple
Hmm.
of weeks. And it just turned out that I was the person that was able to ground her, like really help her to channel that. And my role was simply just to make sure she was okay. Like you
Yeah.
do you, but we're gonna like try and make this work for you because it was a very extreme activation for her. It had took over her whole body. She had shakes and
Wow.
I was worried about her because I thought that's not, how can you live your life if you're constantly going off? So we started working together and at a regular time every week we would do some channeling and I would sit and ground and do make sure she was protected and she did her things too, but we would work together. And over a year we started to get some really interesting visitations, I suppose, or energies coming through. We definitely were getting trained for it. We were getting information that we were getting people coming in trying to trick us, but telling us they were trying to trick us to make sure that we had good discernment. And after that year was over, she had a Reiki weekend, and I went and did the first weekend. And it was on the second day after we finished that we went for a walk in the forest, and that's when my light language started. So,
Wow.
so it was definitely meant to be her. I call her. So her name's Melly Rose, and she is in Australia actually now in Sydney, and she's well worth having a look at. And so I call her the Galactivator because
Mm,
she just
very
activated
fitting.
light language in so many people.
That's very fitting. Wow. And I like the what you said about just discernment and like being tested. What's real, we'll say it that way. I don't know how to say it any other way, but what has integrity is actually a more appropriate
Yeah.
way of saying it than not. Because these days, like my goodness, I'm just like I can't actually listen to anyone just doing light language these days. Just, I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're channeling, to be honest with you, or what
Yep.
entities possessing them. Like sometimes it's very, and this is like the thing with like these amazing gifts that we're given. I don't know, like something happens to them. It's like we're not yet either ready or just, I don't know, maybe the human condition is still at a level where we're not able um, to give the sacred space that these things really need. But
Mm,
anyway, I don't even know how to say it, but I'm sure that you're getting what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
it's not just everyone can go ahead and do that and then call themselves a light language person, because it's like
No.
that's not the case. That's just not the
Yeah,
case.
well, when my girlfriend started speaking light language, and I was looking at her experience and thinking, holy heck, I don't want that. Like, that's too much for me. And I'm a slow burn. Like, I take my time with it. I'm a Taurus through and through. I take my time to move into things, and I don't like things to be out of control. So, so that requires me being able to relinquish control, but it also means that I have to slow things down quite a lot. So I think in that year, she was like, speaking to me. I could feel. I could feel that the language was coming. I just couldn't let it through until it was the right time. And I think that with everything, with all our gifts, and I wanted to be able to speak light language because I could see how it just lifted the energy in a space. You could, so long as you're working in the right intention, you could really do some magic with it. And so I desired that, but I also didn't desire the feeling of not having control. So I was lucky because I got to learn all of those processes before my language came through.
Mm,
Um, and I think there's a thing of, like there's an ego aspect, and we have to be challenged all the time on our ego because we want, and this is the thing with any spiritual stuff, we so often we want to go out of our bodies to have these experiences that feel amazing, but we're not here to be out of our bodies, and we're here to be experiencing everything in an embodied way. Um, and so,
yeah.
yes, we have to be challenged, and yes, we have to start really working with our intention. We have to be we have to know ourselves. We have to know whether what are we seeking? Like, I think one thing is people are looking sometimes to have a bigger impact. They want to be seen for their light. They want everything of themselves to be out in the world so that people can experience that of them and see and reflect it back. And that's fine because some people are here to do that. I'm not really here to be out in the world, holding massive things or being on whatever screens necessarily. Like for
Yeah.
me, this is the penultimate thing is I get to share in a conversation with somebody. And yes, it's on a screen, but it's not really that important whether I get seen or not. It's more important what I do in my clinic, and it's more important what I do in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Just the differences of experience and how we, yeah, how we use our gifts, and then again, just that the playing with playing with the ego, or not letting it play you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of just, yeah, always just discovering different layers of that myself. It's incredible. All right. Well, let's say, I mean, and so what now, or what next? What now? What next? You kind of said everything, so I don't even know. I have no more questions basically, but is there
I think
anything that you'd like to share?
yeah,
Now that I've asked you all the questions, what would you like to say?
I think for me, what's happening now is I found a lot of people who are, you know, a similar vibration or frequency. Like I found a huge group of people that I feel like I can just be myself with. And what that's allowed is now that I'm really safe, that I can experience more. So what I find is that my gifts are expanding and my whole life is expanding because I have the capacity to bring more in and to hold more space. So, it's just it feels like it's the same, but it's growing. And I feel when people come through, I'm definitely able to bring more information through for people. I'm able to receive more. But equally, I have to then take the time to make sure that I'm clearing myself more and I'm working in alignment and that I'm always working with my body, which has been a challenge. Like I'm really getting challenged in my health and it's not a big deal because it's really not. But because I'm my husband calls me a delicate ecosystem because I feel everything that's happening and I can articulate it. So I can be quite, pedantic, I suppose, about what's happening in my body. So I'm being asked to clear some things out and to look after myself in a better way. And
Mm.
that's a little challenging because it's 50 years now of doing certain things that I have to maybe be willing to release. But, luckily you get forced into these situations. So,
Hey, neuroplasticity.
yeah.
That's that's the good thing. That's the gift, of our brains to us. The brain can rewire itself, you
Mm.
know. like your personality is just a loop in your brain. Don't like it,
Yeah.
change, or you'll be forced to. Like, it's like that. I know it's easier said than done, but it really is on a neural level. You're just rewiring your brain, and it just takes, okay, this pathway is done now. I'm going to practice this new one until it sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you'll get forced into it. If you're on a path and you're trying to resist, that's the thing about taking things slowly. Because I'm a slow burn, I sometimes have to get pushed before I'll move forward. I've learned a lot about listening before I get pushed. But for most people out there, if you're on a path and you're resisting things, you're gonna be pushed along regardless. So you can make it easier on yourself by just having a little bit more flexibility in the way that you approach things and questioning yourself and really just knowing that what you feel is probably more important than what you know. So step into your feeling.
Beautiful. What a beautiful way to finalize the episode. Just such wise words. Thank you so much for sharing yourself, your wisdom, your life with us, and the listeners. Whenever they listen to this, maybe somebody will listen to this 20 years from now. So who knows? What is time anyway? But just really thank you for your presence. It's been wonderful to have you on the podcast. And last question, where can people find you if they want to find you? And if you don't want people to find you, that's fine too. But
I
but
don't think I can hide. All my stuff's been out for years. So I've got a YouTube channel which is Heart to Hearts 4944. I don't know why. I've never changed it. And I've got a website which is bowentherapyauckland.com, so it's very easy to find me. And I do remote sessions, and yeah, I'm very happy to work with people however they want to do that. But equally, I'm also just happy to have conversations if that's what people need.
Hmm. Thank you so much. I'll pop all that in the show notes so people can reach out. Again, Sarah, thanks so much. It's been such a pleasure. And
Thank you, Val.
yeah, no, my pleasure. And if you're listening to this, you're like, wow, this could really contribute to someone's awakening process. Like, comment, subscribe, forward it to them so that people can really be supported. And until next time.